It's not necessarily going to be a disruption completely, but more of evolution of the workforce of the future.
I like to think of AI less as a threat and more as a partner, a tool.
This is also a great opportunity for us to actually step back and think about more of the purpose that we want to pursue with our careers.
I always encourage my university colleagues and friends to think forward to the kind of learning and preparedness that a digital economy is going to need, a digital society is going to need.
We cannot stop, because the minute we stop, we become obsolete. That's how I feel, at least in this day and age, with this rapid changes that are just taking place so fast.
You may have been born in the last century, right? In the late 20th century, but you've really grown up in the 21st century as a generation that has had technology at your fingertips.
All right. It's great to have you here today, Dr. Papazian. I am excited to talk to you. This is a very exciting and yet anxiety-provoking topic that we're going to discuss today, the future of work. So thanks for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a very timely topic, and there's so many ways to think about it. So I'm really looking forward to exploring that with you today.
Awesome. So, Dr. Papazian, you have an amazingly interesting and impressive background. You are a former university president, an executive, an entrepreneur, and you have this diverse experience. I want to start with understanding what you're doing today. What are you working on?
So right now, I'm the executive vice president of the Association of Governing Boards for Universities and Colleges. It's a long title, but what it means simply is I work and we work at AGB with the boards of trustees of universities and colleges across the country around issues on governance and how governance can be strengthened so that boards can become resilient and respond to whatever the current issues are facing their institution specifically and higher education more broadly.
Amazing. I want to start by asking the question that everyone has on their minds today, which is AI going to take my job? So if there is a clear-cut answer to this, what would you say?
I would say yes and no. I would say it doesn't have to, but it will change your job. And it will mean thinking about work in different ways, thinking about the kinds of skills we need, what we're trying to accomplish. I like to think of AI less as a threat and more as a partner, a tool, something that will help me be better at what I do. But it will mean that some jobs will go away, but other jobs at the same time will be created.
hmm So essentially, what you're saying is not necessarily going to be a disruption completely, but more of evolution of the workforce of the future. Would you say that?
I think it's a both and. I think in some cases it will be disruptive. I think it already has been disruptive. But what do we do with that disruption? Do we watch it? Do we fear it? Do we quake in front of it? Or do we think about what are its possibilities? How can we really use this incredible tool that has been developed and that is available to us to do what we do in a more effective way, perhaps in a different way, to create even better outcomes for both the work, but also the kind of society that we want to live in?
Amazing. So my audience specifically are millennials. Basically, they're mid-career professionals. And we consider ourselves, I don't know if this is an accurate observation or not on my part, but we are tech savvy to a certain extent, but not fully yet. I would say the generation that comes after us, Gen Zs, they're a bit more tech savvy and more adept when it comes to technology and AI. So we find ourselves in the middle of our careers, having had, let's say, a standard job all our lives, and now thinking about, okay, what's going to happen to me in the future? So having this kind of an anxiety type of thing, do I have to change jobs, pivot, and whatnot? If you were to talk to someone like me, what would you say? How should I approach this evolution of the workforce or disruption of the future of work?
Well, I would say first, recognize that change has always been with us. It's part of what it makes us human. If you look back long enough, you see these incredible moments of real change. The difference today, I think, from in the past is how quickly change is coming to us. It used to take a generation or two for us to adapt to some new technologies, and now it's a matter of a few years. So you're right to feel that. And the millennials are, depending on if you're an early stage millennial or a late stage millennial, you're closer or further from some of these newer technologies. Now, I have two daughters. My oldest is a millennial, and my youngest is a Gen Z. So I do see it from both sides. But I would say this: one of the important things to do is to again not worry about change. We have said for some time that you won't have one job anymore in one field for your entire career, in one company for your entire career. That was the case in the generation before me, actually. In my generation, which is, as I said, my daughter is a millennial, there's already been change in the workplace, and we've had to adapt. So when we look at millennials, we think, oh, you're in a great position because you understand the real issues and you've been through the work experience, so you know what works well and what doesn't. You have relationships, but you're also close enough to some of these technological changes because you did, in fact, you may have been born in the last century, right? In the late 20th century, but you've really grown up in the 21st century as a generation that has had technology at your fingertips. Perhaps not social media, perhaps not the emergence of AI, but you have been closer to it. So I think you're well positioned to think through how these new tools can be utilized. You will bring a level of wisdom to it and thoughtfulness that Gen Z isn't quite experienced enough to have. So see it as a strength. And I would encourage millennials to engage with it, to think through where they want to be in 5 years, in 10 years, even in 20 years, and develop that way.
Hmm. Yeah. So you are recognizing the importance of actually stepping back for a second and thinking about where is this going? Where is this evolution going? And how can I structure my further career path in a way that I will adapt quickly? And what would you say is maybe one thing that we can start doing today to start adapting to this new revolution that's taking place?
Yeah, I think part of it is, I think it's a really important question that you're asking. I think part of it really goes down to the messages my generation, if you will, has, or the Gen X generation, I'm a boomer generation, has been giving to your generation. And that is that you have to follow a very clear path. You have to create your goals, your roadmap, right? Think through what each stage is going to bring you. Study something that will lead you into a very clearly defined career. And so a real stress on STEM education, workforce development, moving from a very specific training into a career that has a long time future. What we did, and that was all good advice, and that people have done well with that advice, and many have prospered and seen great success. But what we've forgotten to say at the same time is that other education in things like the liberal arts and the humanities, the things that develop the communication skills, the team building skills, that sense of connection across various disciplines, right? Creating that connective tissue and thinking about impacts on human beings as individuals and as a society. We haven't stressed the value of that as much. And as we think about the impact of AI, so much of that repetitive, very early stage work is going to be done by AI. It's nobody's favorite work. So people aren't really sorry about that. But what will emerge is this value of, if you will, a humanities-based education, one that focuses on understanding people and society, because that's really where creativity and innovation lie. And so we have to think differently about how we broaden our understanding of an effective educational experience. And that is an educational experience that really continues, not just when you're in university, but really throughout your life.
So what I'm hearing is soft skills are going to be our superpower in the future. Is that accurate?
100%. Now, I will, truth in advertising here, I bring a bias to that because I'm an English professor by background. So I've grown up in that world. But I'll tell you this, when I was hired as president of San Jose State University, which is the large public university located in the heart of Silicon Valley. So with a engineering school of over 8,000 students, another 2,000 students in computer science. So very large feeder of talent into Silicon Valley companies. People asked me, why is Silicon Valley's public university hiring an English professor? I mean, I wasn't directly an English professor, but someone with that background. And I just paused for a moment and I said, think about when the last great age of innovation was. And I'm a Renaissance scholar, and I said, take it back to the Renaissance. It's a time when interdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity was really at the forefront. And what it did is prompt real innovations in the way we think about our world, the way we understand who we are, the development of the scientific method, and so many more things. And so really a deep understanding of what it means to be human and how our societies can really be enriched and broadened and powerful and beautiful, right? And so I think people understood that, and certainly in Silicon Valley, I say we see as many humanities and social science majors hired as STEM majors because industry and business understands that you have to be able to think and see around the corner. You have to be able to imagine. And if you're worrying about the linear step-by-step problem solving, you're not thinking forward, you're not imagining. And in order, I've heard there's a really great entrepreneur. You may have known him or know him. His name's Nubar Afeyan, one of the founders of Moderna. And I've heard, and a great scientist, and I've heard Nubar say that science is an act of faith. Creativity is an act of faith. It means imagining something that doesn't yet exist and thinking through the questions to ask to try to understand how to achieve it. And
Mhm.
so I think it's that characteristic of education and learning and mindset that's going to carry the day in a world that is certainly seeing the expansion of the tools of AI and even generative AI in a way that's producing knowledge differently.
Mhm. Amazing. So I'm hearing human-centric design, for instance, is going to be of high value and importance in the future. On a practical level, could you highlight a few soft skills that you would say are very important? I'm also hearing empathy from what you're saying is an important skill to develop. Anything else that comes to mind?
Yeah, I think empathy is core because it
Mhm.
means understanding and being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And if you're designing technology solutions to some problem, there's a user on the other side. And this has always been true in business. You have to
Mhm.
understand who your client is, who your customer is, and really empathy is what helps you do that. Communication skills are critical. We're in a highly diverse and important communication world of communication, exploding in all kinds of media. And so, really thinking through your communication skills. How do you learn how to listen? Listen to diverse voices, people with different points of view who can help you find blind spots and push you perhaps to think differently about a solution to a problem or even to identify a problem. And the wicked problems are going to need new and creative and different and inclusive solutions. Thinking about how to work collaboratively and in teams. And throughout the workplace, it's all about teams and teams which bring expertise, but also diverse perspectives. And the most powerful teams are those with that diversity, where you have people who are able to listen to each other and bounce ideas off each other, push each other, and then develop solutions. But at the same time, you also have to understand data. You have to understand how to use data. What is the story that data is telling you? How to
Mhm.
interpret that and then apply it. And so it's really a combination of important soft skills, but also important practical skills.
Mhm.
And the soft skills are evergreen. They are always there because they're part of who we are. The more technical and specific skills are changing rapidly every 2 to 3 years. And after that, it's a new skill that comes up. And so those who have that interplay between those evergreen soft skills, what I like to call foundational skills, durable skills, they're not soft. They only seem
Mhm.
soft because they're human. And a constantly renewing sort of practical skills are the people who are really going to be able to thrive and lead in this new environment.
I love that. Um, just to make it a bit more practical, to elaborate on the practical skills. If today I'm trying to future proof myself for tomorrow, what would you say are the most important skills that I should develop? You mentioned data analytics is one of them. Anything else? And I completely understand that it's going to change with every
Right.
year, maybe even a few months. But if I'm starting today, what should I start if I don't have any technical background?
Well, I do think data analytics, I think that everybody benefits from understanding what data tells us and how it can be used. So I
Mhm.
encourage people to build some background in data. I also think project management is a skill that is very much in desire. It can be used in any kind of profession. And there's a strong interest in being able to manage projects and complex projects and using technology solutions to do it. There are many tools out there that allow you to manage complex projects that leverage the availability of information and the way to ensure that the right people in the right timeline have what they need. So I encourage people to develop a background in project management. I think really understanding AI is critical. Play with it. I do it all the time. I'm fascinated by it. And what I'm finding with AI is that the jobs it's going to eliminate, to go back to one of your earlier questions, are the jobs that are entry level and repetitive. So we're seeing, as an example, that all of those coding boot camps that just opened up in the last couple of decades are now starting to close. And why are they closing? Because AI can do a lot of that entry level coding. But here's
Mhm.
the problem, it's not perfect. And so you need somebody who has a greater experience, who can go through whether it's a code for some project or something else that has a technological base and actually review it, make sure it's accurate, use it for the next step, which means the next level up person. And that person is going to be the one who intersects with those soft skills or durable skills and those technical skills. So these are some of the things. And for some people who really, love content development and want to look at things like UX design, they should do that. If they're interested in creating content on the web, obviously the visual world is critical today. So lean into those things that are of interest to you that perhaps are able to build on some strengths you have that you haven't thought of ways to integrate into your current job. And then it becomes an added, if you will, card in your quiver or arrow in your quiver that you can use as these new jobs start to emerge that are going to look for a different combination of skills and knowledge and experience.
So what I can take from this is interdisciplinarity is going to be very important. It's combination of maybe some core understanding of certain whatever profession, and then plus AI plus soft skills. So it's a combination of skills that's going to be more important than a singular line path of a career path or profession that we have today, for instance. Mhm,
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think the folks who stay very narrow on one path are the ones who are going to run into trouble.
mhm,
And at some point will probably stall out in a career unless it's a very highly specialized area of expertise that is not replaceable. But for
mhm.
most of us in the workplace, we are going to be learning these new skills and we're constantly going to be evolving them and thinking through how we can continue to make ourselves more competitive and more vital.
Hmm. And I think I read an article on this as well, and I want to confirm this with you. So in the future, we're going to have a lot of career pivots. So it's not going to be a straight linear path as it was before, but it's going to be a lot of pivots, a lot of changes within 10 years, 20 years of our careers. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And I think what I would say to people is don't be afraid of it. I was once given advice by a very wise person who, when I was considering potentially moving to a different kind of job, and that individual said to me, just remember, opportunity comes when it comes, not when you're ready or you want it to come. And so, what I would encourage people to do is first recognize that that makes life interesting. And it can be exciting and fun, and it gives you a chance to learn new things and think in new ways. So you may not know when that's going to happen, but keep your eyes open for those opportunities and don't be afraid to jump in, because it is going to happen to everyone in some form or another. There will be changes, there will be pivots, but that is because we're in this moment where we're really moving actively from a what I would call an industrial age economy to a digital knowledge-based economy. And that is an accelerating one with accelerating change. If you embrace it and you continue to learn and to stay current, and to talk to people in fields different from your own, you will ride the wave well. And if you don't, and you resist, and you try to stick to a very narrow and rigid plan, don't have that agility and that flexibility, you may be successful, but you're also may find yourself running into some trouble.
That's amazing. I think what I think about this is also a great opportunity for us to actually step back and think about more of the purpose that we want to pursue with our careers. And I've seen this a lot among a lot of my fellow millennials. Everyone who has been stuck within one narrow career path, closer to the age of 30, we just stop and we think, is this actually what I wanted to do? Right now, I see this trend a lot. So I hear that a lot of my friends are at this existential crisis where they're thinking about careers that are actually purpose driven. Do you think the AI and the just development of technologies is going to facilitate us to actually become more purpose driven and help us to embrace new opportunities? Do you think that that's a positive trend that we can expect from the future of work?
It's one of the things I love about your generation, as well as the generation that follows Gen Z. You're both very aware and thoughtful around purpose and impact. And there's more to life than just working and earning. Yes, you have to work and you have to earn, right? Because we all need a foundation so that we can live in some comfort without worry. And that's how you reduce stress in life. But where we can actually align our work with our values, right? Where we can see ourselves bringing our talents together with others to solve challenging problems locally and perhaps globally, around climate change, around urban congestion, around whatever it might be that matters to you, around health and health disparities. That's really powerful because work is we spend a lot of time in it, and we want it to be meaningful in some way. And when it's not, we burn out and we sort of start to shrink inside a little bit. So I actually love that sense of purpose and impact. I encourage people to think through that and then to be thoughtful about how they can actually realize those things that matter to them.
Thank you. I want to know about the role of the universities in the future. We grew up with the understanding of you need to get a master's degree, you need to maybe have two master's degrees and then a PhD, and then you can consider yourself a successful person, get a good career, and then climb the corporate ladder. That's what my parents taught me, at least. What do you think is going to be the role of the universities in the future? How is that going to evolve?
Yeah, we're thinking a lot about what that looks like. And universities throughout their history have been critical as new technologies have come forward, and certainly in the United States have really led to the United States prosperity over decades, and really throughout its history. And so we're seeing ourselves at another moment like that, thinking through how we develop America's talent or even global talent will depend on universities being that combination of traditional learning, but also innovative thinking. And that means really being present for lifelong learning, for understanding what kind of talent business and industry and society is going to need going forward, and how we partner with business and industry to really create the kind of opportunities and the preparedness, frankly, of learners to be successful when they graduate. There's nothing wrong with going to graduate school. It's always a way to add skills and to gain experiences. So I encourage people to do that. I think it is a valuable path still, but there are many other paths as well. And I think for what the beauty of higher education, certainly in the United States, is that we have such a diverse ecosystem of campuses. We have, strong research institutions, and we have community colleges that work very closely with local industry on entry level and preparedness for careers that focus on skills, perhaps, and everything in between. And I think that really helps, so that students can find the right path for them. But I always encourage my university colleagues and friends to think forward to the kind of learning and preparedness that a digital economy is going to need, a digital society is going to need, a society where people live longer, but we have perhaps a smaller population that needs to support, an aging population. And so there are different challenges involved. I think universities are up to the task. Some are evolving more quickly than others, but they will be an important partner in preparing for the future.
So I heard lifelong learning, and it came to me that probably this is what's going to be our future. We need to be learning all our lives. We cannot stop, because the minute we stop, we become obsolete. That's how I feel, at least in this day and age, with this rapid changes that are just taking place so fast, we can't even blink, new thing comes up.
I think that's absolutely right. And I think with the rapidity of change, it actually can be uh, disruptive for people. Like, where do I fit in this world? You feel like you're on, shaky ground. And so having that chance to learn, to step back a little bit, to kind of see the bigger picture can really be helpful. And the other thing I would say is that all of society is going through this in some form or another. So no one's alone here. It's just that we are really genuinely moving from an industrial age to a digital age. We are in the middle of the change, and each generation is a bit closer to the other side, and we'll get there, but it will constantly evolve. And I think that's for me, that's what's interesting. I wouldn't want to be doing the same thing I was doing 30, 40 years ago when I started my career. I'm glad we're doing different things. We can think differently about them. And there's some great work being done to anticipate where those directions might go. So I just encourage your listeners to keep themselves informed, ask questions, learn, read, listen to podcasts, right, to get some ideas on how they might fit in this constantly evolving world.
Hmm. And do you have any sources or any ways that you could recommend people stay informed, considering that we're just so overwhelmed with the news and media just throwing things at us that we just cannot filter, and just stay informed about what's coming up, what's changing, how it's changing. Any specific sources that you could recommend for us?
Yeah, there's a lot coming at us. I've heard it described as a meteor shower, right? Of all
Yeah.
kinds. And this is where we haven't talked about the critical thinking skills. That's
Mm.
another one of those durable skills. Being able to assess what is important and, what is less important, what is noise and what is real information. That's going to be important, I think, for all of us. It doesn't matter what our generation is, to be able to sort through all of this noise, because there's just a lot of it. And I think I would say, looking at respectable sources, there are places that are looking at things like, the job market. What are some of the jobs of the future? There's a company called Lightcast, which does a lot of labor analysis, looking at what industry is looking to hire as they plan strategically over the next 3 to 5 years. And so those kinds of reports that companies like Lightcast put out can be very interesting. I think, the Future of Work podcasts that coming out of places like Harvard and others who are doing studies on this are also really interesting, because it's built on good data and real analysis. I think there's an organization that I've been involved with as a senior fellow called the Burning Glass Institute, and they are a research lab that also thinks about action, that's looking to align education with workforce opportunities. And they have something called the American Opportunity Index, which looks at about 200 of the top Fortune 500 companies, about what they're looking for in terms of the skills. Where are there opportunities? Where are there gaps? Social media is a big opportunity right now, but will it stay the way it is today in the future? This is a question to ask. Many of the millennial and Gen Z generation are looking at social media as a pathway to success. I think it's going to be with us, but I think it's going to evolve and change. So I would look at these kinds of sources. Some of the consulting firms also have really relevant reports that come out. Most of those are published, by the way, on LinkedIn. You can find them there. And that way you don't have to worry as much about all the noise. So those are some directions one might go.
Thank you for that. And I agree. I think a lot of us in my generation and the generation after us, we are looking at social media as one of the pathways to express ourselves, to share our skills with the world, or to share value with the world. It's not just social media. We're also looking at other side hustles or entrepreneurship as a way to, create additional income. Looking at the future, do you think entrepreneurship is going to be a kind of like a safety net for us to future-proof ourselves?
Well, entrepreneurship has always been there. And I'm here based in Silicon Valley, and it is an environment that is full of entrepreneurs. The one thing about entrepreneurship, and I do think it will be with us, and I think it's always something to be thinking about. I love the fact that particularly younger people are seeing different problems and wanting to find solutions, and aren't waiting for someone to give them permission. That they're actually saying, I'm going to create this startup. I'm going to find the solution. I'm going to invest in it. And I think that's wonderful. The reality, though, is 9 out of 10 startups fail. And so, that's okay if what you're doing with it is learning from it. If you're able then to take the experience that you've had and reflect and analyze and say, what worked well here? What was it about the idea? Was I off in the way I defined my target audience? Was there another approach I might have taken? Did I need a different kind of perspective, as part of my team? What was it? And so that kind of experimentation, which is what entrepreneurship is, can actually lead to some great breakthroughs and great success. You have your unicorns out there. They all started as startups, but many more don't make it that far. But most entrepreneurs who are successful will tell you that wasn't their first company. They usually went through a couple before, and they learned lessons from it, and they were able to be humble enough. There takes a certain confidence to be an entrepreneur. You have to be willing to put yourself out there, say, I have an idea that everybody should pay attention to. This is important, and you are your best salesperson for it. So it needs that confidence. But it also needs, and too often this is the piece that I don't think is out there enough and we don't talk enough about, it needs real humility. that I don't know everything, that I need to learn from others, that I can bring others to the team, that I don't need to have all the credit because ultimately the idea is bigger than just me. And for those people who do that, they can find some real success. So I would say have fun with it, be smart about it, recognize it takes hard work, and be able to adjust and change as realities around you might change.
Mhm. That sounds great. And I think I read another article about the future of work, which talked about multi-portfolio people, meaning that we're not just going to have a single source of income, but multiple in the future. What do you think about that? Is that something that you think is potentially going to evolve?
I think it'll be a range. I think you will always have people who are working in one company for their whole careers. They may change jobs in that company. They may move from an entry-level project manager, for example, and continue to develop their leadership skills and ultimately become part of the C-suite and start running that company and spend their whole life there. I have a friend who's been at one tech company. He was given that, got that job right out of college. It's 25 years later, and he has moved through, he's run some major divisions, and it's continuing to evolve and develop within that company because the company is changing. The company, it's a tech company, so it's constantly evolving and changing with the new, with the cloud-based learning, the chips, the, AI, the whole thing. And so you can actually have a full career within one company, but only if you're willing to continue to learn and grow and look for opportunities within the company to grow.
Mhm.
Right. And I think that's something I would recommend that folks do. Remember, you're in charge of your career. And so if you're in a company and you want to learn something about their marketing and how the company is actually presenting itself, ask for opportunities to engage with different teams so that you can learn more about it. Go back and develop maybe a leadership program of some kind. So you develop your leadership skills so that you can move up and become one of the decision makers in that company. So I think that route is still going to be possible because companies will exist, they are established, they will evolve and change, and they will want people who understand the company from the ground up. So that's fine. But I also think you'll see the other extreme, which is what you described, where you have multiple experiences. Perhaps you're working as a freelancer or a gig employee on many types of things, and you're doing it in a way that allows you to put together a good living, but also interest, develop new skills. It's going to depend a lot on the individual's comfort level with risk, with having to make things happen for themselves versus being part of an infrastructure where that's happening. And I think you'll see everything from one end to the other.
Mhm. And bringing our conversation back to where we started, I talked about a lot of the anxiety that we are feeling about the future. It's not just about the future of work, right? It's the political instability and economic instability, all of that, major changes around the world, plus the rapid development of AI and uncertainty that we are experiencing about the future. Um, if you could summarize, how should we approach um, ourselves and our careers in a way that we future-proof ourselves and we feel comfortable and confident in moving forward, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. And yes, you're right. And, your generation, the generations to follow, Gen Z, Gen A, right? Whatever we're calling, whatever's post Gen Z, you've been through a lot, right? You've been through this rapid change in technology. You've been through, I mean, when you were growing up, of course, you went through 9/11 and what that did to the destabilization of the world more globally. You've been through COVID and all that that means. And I think we're still learning our lessons from COVID. I don't think we're fully out of it yet. We may be out of the immediate threat of the disease, as that caused so much death early on in 2020. But we're not out of its impact on us. We're not out of the learning loss. We're not out of the anxiety. We're not out of the uncertainty. And then there are new technologies to come. AI isn't the last. There's a lot of talk, of course, about quantum. And quantum, as much as we see AI as changing our world, I'm not a scientist, but from what I'm hearing from all of my scientific friends and my computer science friends is that quantum is going to be even more transformative. And it's still not there yet, but the developments are happening. So this isn't going to end. The other thing that's going to change, of course, is the impacts of climate change, which we're already seeing. And what does that mean in terms of our world? The demographic shifts, and there's real discussion about how in about 30, 40 years, the world population is going to be cut in half. Just because of the low birth rates we're seeing in so many developed countries, but really in all countries around the world, and that this is going to have a profound impact on our societies. So this is all real, but I would say this to folks: look, that's all true. It's a backdrop. Um, but you can either let yourself be caught up in all of that, or you can just take a breath, do some self-care, right? Make sure you give yourself those mental health days, to give perspective so that you can really think through what impact you can have. Where are the areas that you want to make a difference? Because ultimately, it will be all of us collectively making our small differences that will, I hope, help us as a society avoid the worst and perhaps even find ways that enrich our lives. So yes, I get it. The last thing I'll say here, and I give this advice all the time, the challenge with social media, and millennials and Gen Z face this all the time, is that our entire lives, everybody's life is curated to perfection in front of us. And so a lot of anxiety as well comes from these comparisons, fear of missing out, FOMO, all of these kinds of things. And I just say, you know what? Find hours in the day when you're not online, right? To give yourself a chance to find that balance. There's one last point, if you don't mind my saying this. I know I've gone on here for this question, but I just, was reading an article about how a number of school districts, including LAUSD, have banned cell phones in the classroom. And actually, students are happier. Why? Because everybody is off. If it's just one or two, the fear of missing out. But if everybody is off and doesn't have to worry about that next ping and what are somebody else doing, and remember, it's all curated. It's not really real. It's one piece of somebody. It helps reduce that anxiety.
Mhm. Amazing. So you would say you're optimistic about the future of work overall, or not so much?
Well, here's the thing. I'm an optimistic person. I had a colleague once say to me, Mary, you're the most optimistic person I know. I don't know where it comes from. And I always take it back to my own history, when we've survived very real traumas in our collective history, and we're still here to try to shape new things. We have a choice every day. We can get up and feel despair, which isn't a whole very fun way to live. It's a very challenging way, and many people are facing that, and for in some cases for some very real reasons, because the pressures of trying to manage life in this very difficult time are overwhelming. I'm empathetic for those individuals, but for those of us who are not facing that kind of existential crisis, who know where our next meal is coming from, right? It's very hard if you're unhoused and you don't know how you're going to eat or take care of your kids. I mean, these are real tragedies. But for many of us, we have choices. And I prefer to get up and think positively about what difference I can make in the world today. And so I'm optimistic because if you look back in history far enough, we are a constantly evolving species. Our society is constantly evolving. And those of us who can lean into that and embrace it and help shape it for good. I say to people all the time, technology is not a good or bad thing. It's a neutral tool. People are able to use it for good or can use it for ill. And I want the good people to be in control of whatever new technologies are there so that we can use it to ease suffering and to create healthier environments so that more people in our society can thrive.
Mhm. Thank you. And last question, which is what is, again, it probably will be a summary of what you said, but what is one practical advice you would give to someone who has a 9 to 5 right now, but who wants to position themselves for the future, or so to say, futures proof themselves. What is one thing during the day that they can do if they have, let's say, 1 hour to spare? Where can they start?
Well, I would encourage people to read more. I think people don't read enough today, because that will allow your mind, read all different kinds of things. Read books that talk about technology and AI. There's a new one, I just ordered it, that came out from Harari, Harari, called Nexus. And
Yeah.
it's all about how technologies over the generations have impacted us. Give yourself that time to walk without your earbuds on, to read, and to think a little bit, to reflect on what you care about, perhaps to journal, right, and get some of your ideas down. Because what that'll do is help you see beyond just the work you're doing every day. As you start to see, what am I reading? What am I learning about? What am I learning about myself? What are some skills potentially that I can develop? And then practically, there are so many opportunities with online courses and credentials to that don't cost a lot. Many are free, and some are just small cost. If there's an area you always wanted to learn and you just never had time to do it, why not do it now? Right? Take that extra class, learn that content marketing, take that graphics design class. All of those skills are actually going to be relevant for the world of work that's with us today and will be evolving tomorrow.
With that, thank you so much, Mary. I appreciate you joining us and sharing all this wisdom with us.
Oh, it was my pleasure, and thank you, and best of wishes to all of your listeners, who I know are going to do wonderful things. So we appreciate all of you.
Thank you.